Welcome to the Breeder's Brew, the dog breeding podcast hosted by myself, Sarah, the Canine Family Planner,
and me, Isabel, the Canine Nutrition Coach.
We're promoting responsible breeding by unpicking the minefield of breeding myths and methods for owners wishing to expand their whelping wisdom.
We are back for another one of our Q&A sessions where we will go through and find some people's most pressing, desperate questions and weigh in on what we think, give some of our opinions. Hopefully this is beneficial for you guys listening at home. It might be a question that you were about to ask or you had in the back of your mind as well. It goes without saying, if you want to get involved in these Q&A sessions, we do absolutely invite you to send your questions in either to the Breeders Brew community page on Facebook or via email to podcast@breedersbrew.com. Please feel free to send in any breeding questions and we will hope to get around to them in one of our Q&A sessions next time. All right, so let's get started.
Yeah, let's get started. Right, I've got the first question already fired, ready to go. And it's a short question. So, anonymous post, don't know why, but it says, my dog tied with a male December 28th. When should she have her pups? I know she got a while, but just trying to be prepared. So, I'm going to do a shameless plug first. Now, look, Isabel, if only they had their pregnancy puppy predictor.
I love these things. These pregnancy and puppy predictors are stuffed in as many pockets and drawers as I have poo bags, to be honest with you. They are the most helpful thing in the world.
So, for anyone that can't see, because you're listening, which is fair enough, and I've shown it to people, it is a round circular disc with an inner, smaller circular disc. On the outside is the months of the year, and on the inside is some of the major milestones that any dog breeder basically needs to know, such as when to start ovulation testing, or at least by ovulation, mating, when their embryos implant, when you could book a pregnancy scan, when you could book a progress scan, which they're slightly different because each scan looks for something different development-wise at the time, when to adjust the dam's diet, when her due date is, when you can begin weaning puppies, when they should be microchipped, when they're ready to leave, given that the legal age in the UK is 8 weeks old. It might be different depending on the breed, but it would only be you keep them longer. They wouldn't be going any less than 8 weeks old. And then also when the puppy's maternal immunity expires, because we have a lot of conversations about vaccinations, which is for another time at this place. But the whole point is I can spin this in a disc to any date and it's going to automatically give me the milestone date. So I'm actually going to plug in. He said the 28th of December. So bear with me. So she was mated on the 28th of December. That tells me if he could be bothered to get her scanned, he can actually get her scanned as of recording in 4 days' time. And I generally say to people, don't worry about anything until you have your scan done, because then you know whether you're dealing with fact or fiction, whether she is or isn't pregnant, and then you can start panicking if she is pregnant about what you need to do next. So he's obviously feeling that anxiety already because he happens to have made a post anonymously about it on a Facebook group. But what was it the due date he was asking for? Yeah, when should she have her pups? So I'm predicting, like Mystic Meg, it would be around it looks like the 1st of March.
Lovely time of year to be welcoming a litter in the UK. That
is a nice time of year. Yeah, spring, moving into spring is a nice time of year. And the thing that I'm most interested about is, when do they leave for their new homes? Which
dear, I'd expect nothing less.
Which would be the 25th of April. So that's crazy. Like his first quarter of the year, isn't it? It's pretty signed, sealed, delivered. Well, and a bit more, to be fair. I highly rate anybody going and purchasing one of these. I'll put a link in the show notes. They're super cheap. They're super convenient. They fit in the palm of your hand. They require no technology. Look at this for a hard sell as well. They require no technology.
Should be taking
for any
notes.
for any technophobes, you don't even need to worry about it. It's an absolute bargain, cheap as chips. Go and grab yourself one, and you'll be happy for eternity. All things aside, Isabel.
All things aside, that's what Sarah would comment on that post. She would say, here's a link, get yourself one and it will give you all the answers you need.
But if I hadn't seen that post, how would you reply, Isabel?
How to answer this politely? I'd be firstly quite surprised that somebody seeking assistance this number of weeks on hadn't already had chance to go on Google and Google how long is dog pregnancy, or ask it in whatever words you want, when would my puppies be due, or Google would understand and it should give you a pretty good, accurate response, I would hope, for a question as simple as that, which is 63 days from ovulation. So he would only have to go, I say he, the anonymous poster would only have to go on Google to have got that answer. So, I mean, if I was feeling really petty, I would go and Google it and send him the Google search link. But I'd probably just, if I was feeling nice, reply 63 days from ovulation. You don't know when ovulation is, so guess it's from mating.
Yeah, well, I would say 61 days from mating if you don't know where ovulation is, because generally if they've mated naturally, which we don't know, but if they had mated naturally, a female generally isn't going to be receptive until she's ovulated. Yeah, we're talking in massive caveats because some bitches will, but
they will.
I would always say 61 days from mating if you haven't ovulation tested, 63 from ovulation if you have ovulation tested, and you're screwed if you're doing artificial inseminations and not tested, because
you've got absolutely no idea. Which is a question I personally see online all the time, is my girl's X number of days, do I need to panic yet? Whether that's day 57 or day 67, because this is the problem when you don't know ovulation. You are guessing when your bitch's due date is, because it is 63 days from ovulation, and if you've read Book of the Bitch or similar, they very often will state a window. Am I right in saying, Sarah, that the current literature is 57 days to 65 days is generally accepted? But I have actually read in some publications up to 67 is what a lot of vets are taking now, which I would never let a female go up to day 67 if I knew when ovulation was. But hey, each to their own.
Yeah, if ovulation has been identified, 67 is a ridiculous number, in my personal, honest, but right opinion. If you have an ovulation tested, then it's slightly different kettle of fish. But, however, if you have ultrasound scanned and they can do gestational measures, especially later bone gestational measures, so they can actually do skull measures, then that should all tie in. So even if you haven't ovulation tested, that should still be a very sensible indicator that you should be paying attention to as to what your due date is looking right. I recently read, I think, I told you the stats, but in a book I shall not mention, but it said that, was it 11% can whelp as early as 57 days, and it was 4%, I think, that went up to the 67 days, which just seems it's still a crazy window. And then we have to factor in the litter size, because if it's a solo pup, I'm never letting a solo pup go into 67 days. Maximum 65 days, and we are sectioning on day 65. Just my opinion, but from my experience of what I've seen based on fact, is that if they go over the 65 days, you're probably going to be paying for a C-section, and you're probably not going to have a live pup at the end of it. So if ovulation hasn't been detected, then there are other measures that can be used to help guide you as to what your due date is. And we must remember, a due date estimated due date is exactly that, is estimated. You're always working within a window. So just because, even with my clients, I say this is her due date, but she can go over and safely go over, because the measure is the same measure for a Chihuahua as it is for a Great Dane, and yet they're very different in size and breed type. So that has to be factored into a degree. But I think the important thing about knowing an estimated due date really is it falling over a weekend, and what vet support have I got if that's the case, or a bank holiday or whatever it might be. I think it's not about that being the day the pups are born. It's the bigger picture of, if the puppies land in this window, what support have I got should I need it?
Absolutely. It's about being proactive. And as we always say, proactivity gets you out of a sticky situation. So be prepared, plan, get your estimated due date, get a scan done by a qualified professional, and that will give you a lot of pieces of the puzzle to work with, which we always mention. And make sure you're at home, be ready. You wouldn't believe the number of people that I speak to and support that say, I've checked the cameras and she's had a puppy, what do I do? Or they've come down in the morning and half the litter's been born, or the whole litter's been born, or anywhere in between. So the benefit of a due date is, like you said, Sarah, it gives you a window of when you know you need to be on hand for your girl, and make sure you're there to support her and you have the necessary care lined up as well.
I agree. Do you want to know what some of the responses are?
Yeah, go for it.
No, which I don't think they're too bad. Someone said, you have to keep an eye for 58 days. Keep her away from people and pets. She needs total stress-free environment. Need a whelping box ready, especially... Oh, I'm saying he. Why are we saying he? Naughty. The anonymous person is saying... just trying to be prepared. So that person's trying to give them some advice on how to be prepared. Someone else has said,
"If the podcast."
Yeah. Well, we would sit and do that all day long, wouldn't we, Isabel? And we realise we have other stuff to be doing. So we rely on you, great people, sharing our message with other like-minded breeders. Another response was, she should give birth about 63 days later, which would be around the 1st of March. It can vary slightly. Go and read a book on Amazon, they basically said. Though they started going on about it was a game changer for helping me manage seizures in my dog. So
these are bots that are popping up in all the groups.
Oh, are they?
This specific encyclopedia that's being mentioned everywhere, they're not real accounts, so it's really scary. As we say, it's not just the people in these Facebook groups, it's actual bots now that are being employed to spread certain messages or for sales functions. So these are bots that have been set up to generate sales to this specific Amazon product, and it's been done for a purely commercial perspective.
Well, there you go.
It's terrifying that's not even a real person giving their 2 pence. That is a robot.
So that's, I've never factored that into my concerns with these groups, but...
Oh yeah, add that onto the list.
Yeah, let's add spammy bots to it, giving advice, which they know nothing about. And then the last one says, at day 58, start checking temperature every morning before she's active. If it drops, she's in labour, and that can last for a few days.
What's your views on temperature?
I'm all for people taking temperature. It needs to be taken at the same time twice a day. And you need to decide whether that is before and after food, which I kind of think what this guy's hinting at, before she's active. So he's saying before she's done anything in her day, do her temperature. But he's only said once a day, so that's not going to help you. You need to be doing it twice a day, ideally 12 hours apart. People generally aren't that methodical when it comes to temperature tracking. So realistically, how beneficial is it to somebody? Because you've got to catch the drop. I mean, he said here, if it drops, she's in labour. Well,
that's
no, not on the drop she isn't. And that can last for a few days.
No, so what he's giving there is, again, that's false information that's being spread, because a drop on the most basic use of that language, a drop implies that the temperature is decreasing. So as soon as a dog owner sees that temperature decrease, they could take that as gospel. That's not the case. The temperature needs to drop below a specific threshold to determine the onset of labour. And I have spoken to a lot of people over the years who have seen temperature drops, and actually they've been a false drop. Bitches come back up to then only drop again properly 12 to 24 hours later. So it's not a clear cut, when the temperature starts going down, that means it's game time, because that's just not the case.
Yeah, I don't want to discourage people from doing it, because I think, especially as a a beginning or new or novice breeder, it's a nice tool to have to help you identify concerns or issues quickly. So the temperature taking needs to carry on past the puppy birth as well. If you're going all in, let's do it properly. But you need to be methodical or systematic in how you do it. And for that to be realistic, because I mean, most humans wouldn't want an ear temperature twice a day, 14 days. They would get fed up and bored with it. So doing a rectal temperature take on a dog that doesn't understand why you're doing it is just going to get harder and harder the more you do it.
Yeah.
So for that reason, if this is the avenue you decide to go down, please make sure it's a digital thermometer. Please make sure it's a fast read digital thermometer. So it takes 10 seconds to get the temperature, not 30 seconds. And typically you want the fast read ones that I've seen that all have a flexible end to them, which is brilliant because that means you can take the temperature while the bitch is sitting down. You haven't even got to stand her up or maneuver her into any particular position. You can slip it in before she knows about it, and then equally have it out before she knows about it. Like 10 seconds, we're done. I think you need to take those things into account, and you need to be writing the numbers down so you can plot the decrease. You can see the drop. It's going to wave around and do various bits in between. That's totally normal, but you need to be methodical with this approach if that's the approach you want to take. In my opinion.
It's worth noting here as well. I know you mentioned twice a day there, Sarah, but looking back at my temperature charts that I've taken over the years, I would have actually missed a few of the temperature drops if I was only doing temp checks every 12 hours. On the last temp chart that I can think of, which was from a few years ago, fortunately it was a high-risk pregnancy, which is why I was doing the temperature tracking alongside other measures to make sure that everything was going okay. I was actually taking the temperature 4 times in a 24-hour window in the last few days, and that was the only reason that I caught the temperature drop when I did. Otherwise, I would have missed it. So it is worth saying that even if you didn't see the temperature drop, it doesn't mean it hasn't happened, and it doesn't mean she isn't about to go into labour as well. So I would hate for anyone listening to go, great, I'll do the temperature tracking, get to day like 63 and go, oh, there's still no temperature drop, we must be fine. For me, I agree, fill your boots with it. Like the minimum is twice a day. That's what I was coming from. So him saying once a day, I dread to think what you're missing. But if you're going all in on this, then you need to keep really accurate records, and probably twice a day isn't close enough. So I'm all in with, I concur, I agree with you. Wonderful. Glad we're all on the same page for a change. That's unlike the old Facebook groups to give a fairly similar answer. Crikey. Right, I've got a question for you here. I found that took me all of 10 seconds to find another. I'm being mean. An anonymous poster has said, Mum isn't producing enough milk for her 3 puppies, and some teats are not producing any milk at all when I give them a squeeze. What should I do to help?
Okay, so
much to unpick here.
Yeah, I was going to say they're 3 days old. So just rather than
we don't know they're 3 days old. Oh. Sorry, 3 puppies.
There's 3 of them. Sorry, that was me. I knew there was a 3 in there somewhere. Just couldn't remember where. So there's 3 puppies. So rather than me ask 1,000 questions, just what's the comments asking?
Right, let's see if anyone's actually asked any questions. Okay, no, somebody has. Somebody said, how old are the puppies? Answer, 1.5 days old.
Is the breed covered? Has anyone covered the breed? You have a little scroll through.
Nobody's asked what breed the dog is, and nobody has asked by what method of action the puppies were born.
Okay, and you doing your detective work, has this person asked questions before? What's previous?
Absolutely no previous, no context.
Okay, so my response is, did she say about weight loss? Sorry, what did? No, she just said they're not latching on, and there's 3 of them. No, she
just said that Mum isn't producing enough milk for the 3 puppies. When their poster is squeezing the teats, they're not seeing any milk visible. Okay,
so hopefully we all know by now, we're just about to learn about colostrum being what some would say is the first milk. So that is just What did you call? I think you called it golden. What did you call it once?
Liquid gold.
Yeah, liquid gold. That was it. The liquid gold that's required for newborn puppies for their immune system. Yeah, what else do you want to add to that before I go off?
It's just the most beneficial liquid that mammals can consume, quite frankly.
Yeah, so basically, it's not milk. It's colostrum. Some might call it first milk. True milk isn't going to kick in until typically, as a general, up to 3 days. So these puppies are, what did you say, how old were they?
1.5 days old.
1.5 days old. So it wouldn't be unusual to expect your female not to have full milk in when the pups are only 1.5 days. There are podcasts where we've talked about how you can increase milk supply, but we haven't even got that far yet. There are the natural things of puppies need to be latched on. They need to stimulate oxytocin. Oxytocin will stimulate milk production. All their little squeakies. She's got to understand that she's a mum now and her body needs to go into mum mode. And that's not happened in the tiny 1.5 days that the little pups have been on Earth. So it's fine that she hasn't got milk in yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have articulated the answer any better. That it would be unusual for you to be able to visibly identify milk within the first day of puppies being born. That's the long and short of it. So let's have a look at what some of the other members have posted. Someone very short and quick to the point, give it time.
Good.
Another has said, I've been worrying about the exact same thing. I'm at my wit's end. I finally managed to weigh them again and they put a tiny bit on, so I'm not going to worry about it anymore and just assume they're fine. Okay. Another comment, we were having the exact same problem last night, but today is much better. And we even asked the vet and they told us to try and stimulate to see if milk was coming out today. It seems much better. Somebody has correctly posted, Mum won't have milk until about day 3. It's colostrum at the moment. So they've answered that very well. Somebody's tried to upsell some sort of supplement, and somebody else has suggested giving her fenugreek and goat's milk several times a day. I don't strictly agree with the goat's milk comment, but fenugreek is good for milk production, as we've covered in another podcast episode. So, interesting array of advice and fellow reassurance, I suppose, on that one. They've not had any wildly incorrect information, but
I think it just goes to show that other people have had the same problem.
Yes.
Like 2 other comments were like, yeah, we've been in that same boat. Like, we were worried as well. So it's a common thing. It's, we need to understand colostrums first, then milk kicks in. Because then once milk kicks in, this is when we get my bitch is panting and I don't know why.
Yeah, exactly.
Is she ill?
Changes the questions.
Yeah, so no, her milk's just kicking in now. So that's why she's panting. She's producing milk. It's dropping. She's meeting demand now. Yeah, the questions just change, direction to a degree. It's one of those, you just got to ride it out for the first 3 days. I'm not obviously we've talked about it, I am pro weighing puppies. However, for the first 3 days, if people don't do it, I'm not mad at it because there's not much you can do to safely fix the problem until milk kicks in, or you get to the 4th day and you still got weight loss, because then you need to do something now. So because I can understand how people start getting really anxious, weighing their pups every day and just seeing this number go down and down and down and down. I am all for regular puppy weighing, and I still do the first 3 days, but I mentally accepted in my head now, if the numbers go down, don't worry. And to be fair, but it is worth doing, because when they go up, you're like, milk's in, good, we're rocking and rolling.
It's a lovely feeling.
So you're not thinking, wait the 3 days. So it just ticks that box. But I understand why some people don't. But to me, you must be weighing them on the 3rd/4th day. You've got to weigh them when they're born, and then you've got to weigh them 3rd/4th day to know what's happening and whether you now need to intervene or not. If no other signs, that you've been given no other negative concerns or signs, basically.
Fair enough. I'm a religious weigher. I'm one of them, I'm afraid. So I'm still weighing the first 3 days. But that's because, like you said, I want to identify problems early on. So once I know mum's milk is in, if that's before the 3-day window, I then wouldn't want to see a drop after that point. So if I hadn't started weighing until day 4, but mum's milk was in by day 2, and then there's actually technically been a drop between day 2 and day 4, I wouldn't be comfortable in that situation or overly calm about seeing that sort of trend. So for me, I'd just weigh, but I understand what you're saying.
Well, it's just peace of mind, isn't it?
Yeah.
of either way,
of that puzzle.
Yeah, you're just dealing with the facts now, so then let's not ignore them, let's just deal with them. So no.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's me to find a question, isn't it?
It is, it's your turn.
Let's have a look. Right, this is an interesting one, but not overly complicated. So it's got, for those that use, I'm not going to name the brand, but for those that use a certain brand of dog shampoo, the 2-in-1 sort, is it okay for puppies at 7-8 weeks old? It doesn't say anything on the bottle. Now, this is an interesting one, and it might be different for coated breeds to non-coated breeds, but yes. I have never in my life bathed a puppy before it's left for its new home.
I concur. I've never needed to. We've both got short-coated breeds and we both wean onto raw, which probably makes a humongous difference in our opinion here, because weaning onto raw, again, we've covered it in another podcast episode in series 1, it's a lot less messy. You've not generally got the unfortunate poo storm that occurs around weaning time in young pups. So they're not rolling around in feces and everything else. In fact, I know I do the same. I introduce a toilet area very, very early on with my puppies. I know you do exactly the same, Sarah. And it's amazing how young you can teach a litter of puppies. There is a separation between a toilet area and a bed area. So again, if you encourage those sorts of habits and environmental changes at such a young age, I think all of this plays a massive factor into the fact that I don't bath my puppies, because they're not wading through nasty things for 8 weeks. They smell gorgeous and puppy-like and are nice and clean naturally by that age. So I wouldn't need to bath a puppy at 7 weeks.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the norm that puppies stink. I can tell by walking into somebody's house with a litter of puppies how those puppies are fed, whether they're kibble fed or whether they're raw fed, as soon as I walk into that house. And that's not a reflection on them and their hygiene standards. It's not any that that's a reflection of the puppy's digestive system and the repercussions that come with that. So that's one of the main reasons I switched to weaning onto raw, was for my own sanity. I thought, I don't want to constantly have to live in this smell, because all my dogs are rid in the house. I don't want to live with this smell. I don't want to wake up in the mornings and be all super stressed because I have to clean up all this poo and they've traipsed all through it and all that kind of thing. So the way I fix that is to raw feed them. And it's literally not a concern in my head. And I think breeders should be setting up whelping pens with distinct areas. So it's not good enough just to have a bedding area and to whack down 1,000 puppy pads and then that's the rest of the pen. In my opinion, it should be a bedding area, it should be a play area, and then at the far end should be the toilet area. So they know we have to walk through if I'm in my bed, I need to walk all the way down, I need to go to the toilet, and then I need to come all the way back. Because I tell you now, you will get less new owners whinging about toilet training if you have that set up, because you've already conditioned the dog to look for the toilet area. Don't just assume anywhere is a toilet area if there's puppy pads down everywhere, because that's exactly what they will do, because you've not told them otherwise. You've just said, wee wherever you want. Go for it, fill your boots.
Completely agree. And for those of you that have heard other podcast episodes, there are various different socialisation programmes and things like that. I am a fan of puppy culture myself, and it's one of the parts of puppy culture is defining these areas in the playpen and everything else. And I personally have seen huge differences in litters reared with and without, that being one small part of it. So I'm so here for a toilet area.
Yeah, I mean, I've never done puppy culture. I've never done any fancy program, but the benefits are obvious. Even from
Yeah.
the benefits are really obvious. And some breeds are like super duper intelligent. You know, you can literally have not even puppy pads. You can have a tray. They even walk up onto a little tray. They're poo for the little rungs, wee for the rungs. So they can't even traipse through it. They can't even walk in it. With raw, it's different. They'll just flick it and it'll roll somewhere. You know, you can't really get trodden in, on and around. But yeah, depending on what your setup is, you can get really clever with it, that you literally just pick up one tray, empty it, put it back down again. I mean, with my Labradors, I can literally pick up the trays, flush that down the toilet. So I don't even have, like, depends on the time of year, you could end up with maggots in your bins and all sorts, because you've got so much dirty, soiled puppy area, you know, clean up, that you can end up with maggots in your bin. I've had that before and it's disgusting. So the fact that I can just flush it and be gone with it, I don't even think it would be possible with kibble poo to try and collect it to be able to flush it. It just wouldn't even work that way. So you wouldn't think in your head having a well-defined toilet area would mean I don't have to bath my puppies before they go to their new home. But that's the logic is there, that if you actually made those small changes, you probably wouldn't have to. I know with the coated breeds, it can be slightly different. Absolutely. Because obviously they just absorb every sticky thing that's possibly able to absorb. So I understand that might be a little bit different, but I'm sure you could reduce the likelihood of that by some minor changes of, it's not a free-for-all in a pen. There should still be boundaries and etiquette that puppy needs to follow, which they will naturally do because that's what you're training them to do. So when they actually go to their new homes, they are ready to rock and roll. And I'm all for get them out in the garden when you can, as long as it's not raining, as long as it's not absolutely freezing. Get them to toilet outside. Like, why are we even teaching them that it's acceptable to toilet in the house in the first place? Teach them that outside is the place unless you have an accident, and then we'll deal with it. So I don't know anything about dog shampoos because I've never bathed a puppy in my life. And to be honest, I think I've said this before, I've got dogs here, I've never given a bath thinking about it. And obviously they're short coated, but you know, some of them are show dogs. I'm all for regular brushing, good food, good supplements. You probably don't have to bath your dogs that often, and sometimes it's detrimental that you're doing it too much. But I know
absolutely, you can strip the natural oils out of the coat by bathing too often in unsuitable products. So I think obviously we're talking from an incredibly biased perspective here, and I have got acquaintances and friends that breed other breeds of dog, for example poodles. It's actually highly beneficial that they are bathed before they leave at 8 weeks. More to the point that they are taught there are positive associations with being bathed. And during that time, proactive breeders will do sort of, you know, treats and licky mats and whatnot while the puppies are getting used to being, you know, while the puppies are used to getting their feet wet or the hair dryers and things like that. So I do understand from a socialisation perspective, going through that grooming protocol can be really powerful. If you've got a breed that is going to need it as they grow into an adult, then yes, starting them early would absolutely be sensible. That's another thing that these sort of puppy socialisation programs do promote, is early positive experiences. So if you do fall into that category, it goes without saying, read the ingredients. I think I need that tattooed on my forehead at this stage, because if there is an ingredient on that bottle or that packet that you can't pronounce, chances are it's not very good and it's not going to be particularly safe. And I heard a fantastic segment in another podcast, actually, a holistic doctor, human doctor, but she's fantastic, and actually I'll pop a link to that specific podcast in the show notes for anyone that's interested. It was about toxins entering the body, and it's, in fact, Sarah, we should probably do a podcast episode on microplastics and whatnot in the fertility world and things like that. And it was to do with microplastics, toxins, chemicals, the build-up in our bodies. And obviously, anecdotally, dogs live exactly the same lifestyles as us. They live beside us in our environments. And she said something that really resonated with me, which was, why would you put something on your skin that you wouldn't eat? The skin is a breathable membrane barrier that is an organ that's alive and has a blood supply. You go out, you buy these fancy creams, you see them on TV, and their marketing spin is this amazing anti-wrinkle cream will penetrate X many layers down and offer you this will offer you intense moisturization because it penetrates so deeply into your skin. Well, in the same breath, that demonstrates clearly that things you do put on your skin do penetrate the skin. Your skin does have a blood supply, and those things will enter your blood supply. We are the same as dogs in that sense. Dogs have the same blood supply to their skin. That's why they bleed if they cut their skin. So be very careful about what you're putting on your dog's skin, whether that be shampoo or otherwise, and even more so for young puppies, which may have not been exposed to many toxins or chemicals at all, and could therefore have an even lower threshold to such chemicals.
Yeah, I think if bathing is part of your puppy protocol, then communicate that to your puppy owners of that needs to continue. It wasn't just a once off, so the pup goes and it's, all sparkly, that they need to understand going forward. I've already started them on the correct path because I've done this, this and this, but they need to understand the benefits of that and how they need to continue those correct behaviours. Because you're right, if you've got a dog that does need grooming every 12 weeks or whatever the numbers are, I don't know, I don't have groomy dogs. That's the made up word.
I like that. Groomy dogs. We've got ungroomy dogs.
The ones with the fur, the long stuff. Then, yeah, that's part of that dog's life that needs to happen. So yeah, let's make it as stress-free as possible and sell that as a benefit that you've been a proactive breeder and you've started them on that path, and it's the owner's responsibility that now continues. And I would assume that you're given advice on the best products from your understanding that but like Isabel says, there's a growing concern, there's a growing consciousness that people are becoming more aware of the products that surround us and how they might be impacting us and not only daily lives but longevity and health and all sorts. So yeah, I don't think I've ever bathed my dogs in anything other than a neem oil based shampoo. I have no idea if that's good, bad or indifferent, but it's always worked for me. So maybe I'll look at the back of the packet next time and check that I'm happy that I should be doing that. But I'm sure like nowadays there's a lot more like organic suppliers of shampoos and this kind of, like it's a growing trend with human products, isn't it? So I think one of these,
it's awareness. I think that's what it is. I think people are starting to realise that actually fragrances aren't a good thing, and just because you can get a puppy fragrance shampoo doesn't mean that your puppy should smell of whatever that mango lemon sorbet fragrance that they put in, made from synthetic chemicals that are actually known carcinogens. Is just not a really great thing to do. So you won't have to look too hard to try and find a more natural based shampoo, that's for sure.
Yeah, the baby talcum powder smell is the in smell, I think. Should we do another question or
yeah, let's do a quick one.
Do you want to do one more? Yeah.
Round it off as a round number.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of a round number. It's an odd number.
It's fine. We'll take it whatever.
I found a very on-topic question here, actually, from a poster saying, if your dog has had a C-section, how much was it? I've never had any issues myself with birth, but I want to set back that amount in the future just in case. So I'm very impressed that this is somebody who's got a bit of that. Not saying she's a one litter Lucy, she's got some experience, but she's always had good experiences. It's really great to hear someone being proactive and saying, do you know what, I've been lucky. And then she's not taking the it won't be me mentality, which is unusual. So giving her a nod.
What is she English? Is it in the UK? Is it?
No context. We don't
Isabel,
know the breed, we don't know the weight.
What I'm basically going to say is I can't convert from dollars to I don't know the exchange rate.
No, and it's constantly changing, and I'm sure it's only going to change a lot more with the political scene as it is.
Yeah, it will be. It will do. Well, the classic answer is how long is a piece of string, because we don't know the breed. Typically, it would be by weight, because that would tell you how much anaesthetic they need. Sometimes some vets do. I've seen they will quote it per puppy. So the bigger the litter, the more expensive it gets, because the longer they're on the table, the longer the op's going to take, the more stitching and that kind of thing. So I have seen some crazy, where they've charged like a section fee and then amount per puppy, which is interesting. We don't, like, prices vary, vets vary. You could just make up a number. So unless, obviously, if you're going to a breeder friendly vet, then the prices for those kind of procedures tend to be cheaper because they are more comfortable doing them, because they have more experience, because it's a more frequent thing. I find vets that just aren't used to it will automatically just charge more money, hoping to put you off the idea so they don't have to do it. But it really does vary. It varies the time of day, whether it's in hours, out of hours, the bank holiday. You literally could make up a number. Just from recent experience, I had a client ring their vet and they basically said, yes, as long as you reverse progesterone test, we would be happy to do a C-section. So effectively it's an elective C-section. But they basically quoted for a bulldog from 1,500 to 3,000. So
100% increase depending on the weather, the time of day, and whether the vet fancies doing it.
Yeah, they basically said until we do the op, we don't really know. It depends how complicated it is or not. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, that's a big difference. I mean, it's
100% increase difference. That's unbelievable. That's one practice, but it's good that they're being honest about their pricing structure, I suppose. It's a lack of context there, so I think a lot of people are going to chip in with personal experience on that post. But again, unless those responses give context as to their location in the world, whether it was in hours, out of hours, and breed, you can't really take an awful lot from what these responses are going to be.
I was going to say, just realistically, if I literally had no clue and I thought a C-section might be on the horizon and I've done no research, I think you need to have £4,000 in your bank account.
Agreed. I personally was going to say, off the top of my head, 3,500 is what I'd have in mind. So that's interesting that we've both plucked a number out within a very similar ballpark. Not that I'm ever hoping it would be that amount, but I'd rather have too much sat there than too little. And what is the most expensive C-section you've heard of, Sarah?
Well, I paid, and this was many moons ago now, must be nearly 6 years ago. I paid, I think it was 3,200 on a bank holiday weekend to have no live pups and a spayed bitch.
Crikey.
So
and that didn't go. And tribulations of breeding, everyone.
Yeah, I can laugh now, but that didn't go as planned. All I was glad was that the bitch was alive and the money really didn't matter. But that's a tough pill to swallow with my understanding of how a situation in dog breeding can go. So, and I say that was quite a long time ago now. So I imagine if I was in that same situation now, that's probably a $6,000 vet bill.
Easily, from what you're saying, when you add in inflation and vets rates going up the way they have in that time as well. Yeah.
So that's myself. If I can sort of think about some of my clients' comments, I think I did have a guy with a Labrador that paid $3,500, and she was only carrying 3 pups anyway. One had died, so they'd done a section for 2 pups, and which just really shocked me because that seemed a lot of money. I don't know, for a Labrador C-section. I don't know. It just seemed a bit excessive because they're not particularly quirky. So I think that's probably about $3,500 is probably the highest I've heard at this time that I can recall in my brain.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. I was going to say I've not heard of anything starting with a 4, but I certainly have a thing starting with a 3. So that would be a pretty unanimous response from yourself and I. In terms of the responses on the post, just to give our international listeners some context as well, a few people have commented from around the world. So we've got $1,000 in Michigan, We've got £10,000 for a C-section on a Labrador in Central Point, Oregon.
Wow.
Maybe? I'm assuming that's the US. $10,000 for a C-section on a Labrador.
That's insane. They must have been charging by the pup. See, this is one of these.
$10,000.
I bet it was a grand a pup.
That is a house deposit.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just crazy. I don't think I bang on about this a little bit because I don't think some breeders realise the risk they're taking on, not only for the bitch's health and well-being, but also financially. I'm all for the power of positive thinking, and why would you go into a situation thinking it's going to be all doom or gloom? But realistically, you could come out with a £10,000 vet bill and have absolutely nothing to show for it. And then you would seriously question your sanity of why you've just done that. I think what was the most
good motivation.
What was I think the situation I've been in, it cost me £5,000 to do a frozen breeding, TCI, pregnancy, all the things, C-section, to have all the pups die. And I thought, you know what, I would rather have left that money on the doorstep and let anyone come and take it than put my bitch all through that for no reason. Like, it wasn't even about the money. It was the fact that she's carried a litter, she's had a C-section, all of that toll on her body that's cost me £5,000 to have absolutely nothing to show. Like, it was pointless. It just felt really pointless. And I would have rather have just given that money to someone in my community and them have a good time and saved everybody all the bother about it. I think when you breed, you have to be running on averages. So you have to, everything should be priced. And that's why I think generally most puppy prices are not expensive enough. Everything has to be priced, assuming it will go wrong. And if it doesn't, that's fine, because then
you've got it in reserve for next time.
Yeah, in your head, you might start thinking, oh, I've overcharged for this dog now. No, you haven't. You've just built a reserve for when it does go wrong.
Yeah, we're working with biology. That's what you've got to remember. And as much as we like it, it is sunshines and rainbows when it goes swimmingly into plan. And what better thing is there on planet Earth than newborn, squeaky little puppies? It is amazing, but unfortunately, like you said, it can go wrong. And when it does, it's very, very costly. To give you a few more results here, somebody said in South Carolina they were quoted $4,000 to $8,000.
I mean, that's another 100% increase. 100%
increase.
Like 4 to 8.
Yeah, that's like, are you paying for one C-section or two? What would you like to pay for her? Another's commented here saying on a Labrador in the UK, they are based in County Durham and have been quoted $2,000 in hours or $3,000 for an emergency section. So again, that's a Labrador, what you'd consider a straightforward breed, or we would generally in the UK. So another commenter here in the UK, in Surrey, which is in the southeast near London, somebody has been quoted £900 for an elective C-section, or an unplanned £4,000.
How could that be so?
And bearing in mind, we're talking, what if there was an emergency at like 1:00 PM in the afternoon? Well, that's because it's not booked in. It's automatically $4,000. Ouch.
That's crazy. But the 900 seemed way too cheap, because I was going to say, well, what breed of dog is that? For 900 seems too cheap. But
let's see if I can find out. Let's see if then looks like a French bulldog from the profile. So that's interesting.
That is
cheap. But it's a smaller weight of dog.
Yeah, but I would expect a Frenchie to come in still at 1,200. I would be shocked if anyone's doing C-sections at under £1,000.
Yeah, I have heard of the odd place here and there, but I understand there's a human psychology that also goes along with pricing, and I must say I would be hesitant, not necessarily on correct basis or anything other than psychology, if I was quoted less than 1,000.
Well, it worries me about the different anaesthetics, and you have better quality than others, and I'll be like, yeah, don't be scrimping on that stuff. Like, give her what she needs.
Vets. It's interesting. I know that there is a few vets in the UK that do pride themselves on their C-sections, and that's sort of their bread and butter. And I have heard of figures being thrown around regularly between £500 and £900. And I know that people will travel several hours to use a specific vet that I'm thinking of that comes in nearer £500 than not. So it's interesting that there are such huge differences. And like you said, is it because they're using different drugs? Is it because they're not charging their hourly rate as high? Is it because, in fact, the surgeon is highly skilled and therefore they can do a C-section a lot quicker and they need less assistant staff in with them potentially? I'm not a vet, so I don't know.
I don't know what the drill is about drips, whether the bit should definitely be put on a drip or not, because that used to be a big thing back in the day. She definitely need to be on the drip, but I'm not too sure whether that happens nowadays or not.
Don't know. We could do with a guest episode, couldn't we, with a vet jumping on some of these sort of things. That'd be really great. Be good to get another perspective, because there's some really wild differences. Another comment here, somebody on Australia, $2,100, which to me sounds quite fair for Australia. I know their cost of living is a lot higher than over here, and that doesn't shock me. Somebody else has commented on here, £500 in the UK. Really surprising. London, so obviously bearing in mind London is our capital city, you'd expect potentially either more competitive rates or higher rates, depending on which way around you look at it. Quoted £4,200 up to £5,000. That's the highest I've heard on in the UK.
I reckon the numbers, as you say, it depends whether they're breeder-friendly vets, whether it's their specialism, whether they want to entertain that type of work for their practice or not. And as with anything, variety is the spice of life. And there's some vets that be like, yeah, like it's no big deal, we can do it. And other vets, they're just not interested. They'd rather just deal with, whacking out antibiotics and wormer and getting on with their day.
Absolutely. So I would say from an average of those comments I've read, in the UK, it looks to be about between £2,000 and £4,000. And I would say in America, it looks like it's anything upwards from $1,000 up to $10,000. So, huge variations in cost. So in answer to that original poster's question, how much should you put aside for a C-section? How long is a piece of string? What breed have you got? £4,000-ish? Then you've got money left over if things go to plan.
I agree. Right, are we done for this week's episode? I feel that we are.
I think we are, yeah. Hopefully that was another really enjoyable listen for you on one of our many informal chats that Sarah and I enjoy over the world of breeding. We would love to have you guys get involved in the next Q&A session. As you can tell, Sarah and I would natter all day long about these things and happily answer any of your questions. So if you want to email them in to podcast@breedersbrew, or head over to our Facebook page and pop your questions in there, then hopefully we shall be able to answer some of those live on the next podcast episode.
Thank you for listening to my brutal honesty. And I hope you and I hope you tune in next week. See you then. Bye.
See you later.
We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did recording it. I'm sure you've probably worked out by now that not all Facebook whelping groups are made equal. We strongly recommend you come and join us by simply searching Breeders Brew Community on Facebook and requesting to join the group filled with proactive and passionate puppy practitioners.